your host, Lonnie Clark. We stand together and accept that we now live in a world transformed by Fukushima. Monday, Wednesday, and Friday from 8 a.m. to 9 a.m. Pacific Standard Time here on UCY.TV radio. We relentlessly engage every ear that listens. We expose and confront the complete lack of accountability for the nuclear industry. Consider social engineering programs who view our bodies, minds, and souls as assets on a balance sheet. We discuss vital current issues, interview activists, and engage our audience in an effort to allow all voices to be heard. The Age of Fission radio show creates a venue that all will choose. We encourage our listeners to reclaim their power and their courage to take action and save our planet from the ravages of greed and indifference. Our actions matter. Every voice matters. We remind our listeners that happiness is resistance. Love is greater than fear. Good morning, UCY.TV radio listeners. This is Lonnie Clark with the Age of Fission radio show. And this is a pre-recorded interview that I have done. You know, on Mondays, I've dedicated Mondays to the city of St. Louis now, trying to get, in an effort, not trying, because we are going to accomplish this task, in an effort to get our government to take this catastrophe seriously. I posted on Facebook, it's the Westlake Landfill Facebook page, just an offer for general citizens to give me a call, and let's talk about this, because the Moms of St. Louis have a representative named Dawn Chapman, which was on the radio last Monday. A really awesome interview. But I thought it's extremely important just to interview the average citizens that are coping and dealing with this situation. During the week, a gentleman by the name of Jesse Koenig reached out to me and offered to do an interview today. He, like most people in St. Louis, has to work every day, so he couldn't get up at 8 o'clock in the morning on Monday morning to interview with me. So he's agreed to pre-interview. So we're actually pre-interviewing this. And he is there. He's on the line now with us with his sister, whose name is Carli. So let me just bring you right in, Jesse and Carli. Thank you for joining me on the Age of Fission radio show. My big question to both of you is, how long have you been living in St. Louis? Have you always lived in St. Louis?
Yeah, we've lived in Florissant, which is just a county inside of St. Louis, for our entire lives. Carli's 14 and I'm 27, so
wow.
We don't know.
And how far away are you from the Westlake landfill and the creek that's got horrible issues going on there?
Well, as of right now, we kind of did a little thing online where they on the Westlake site, they put a thing out there so it can kind of help people calculate their distance, because I guess everybody within a 10-mile radius is what they're saying should be really concerned. But we are actually 5 air miles away from the landfill.
Oh, my God.
And then the Coldwater Creek that has the same toxins that are now sitting in the landfill is just at the end of our street.
Oh, my gosh. So, do either of you have any, now you don't have to share this, but do either of you have any negative health effects that you've had to suffer with through your life? Are you guys both unaffected, or how do you feel? Has it affected you personally or anyone that you know?
Yeah, for us, our personal effect would be our mother. I'll tell you a little bit of our family history. I'm the oldest of 8 kids, and our mother, her name is Sandra, she has probably the most health issues out of the family. I've got some blood pressure issues and things like that, but her directly, she in 2000 was diagnosed with lupus.
Oh.
And that's one of the autoimmune disorders that's really highly populated in this area, and they believe correlated with the radiation exposure in the creek. She also has had glider tumors on her thyroid.
Oh my gosh.
2 years ago, she had a complete hysterectomy, and after they did the hysterectomy, they discovered that she had cervical cancer. So, all of which are really, really, really scary. And I know for a fact, and so does my mom, that I have two siblings, two of my brothers actually, that are, quite frequently outside on their bikes and on their skateboards, that have played in the creek on a regular basis before we really knew all of the effects of doing so.
Oh my God. Well, this is the hardest part about radiation, is it's like a little ticking time bomb. You could be fine now, and then in 5 years have something that is really what the nuclear industry loves, because it's plausible deniability. They can deny it comes from that. So it's really a sad thing. So, Carli, you are young. You're 14 years old. How does this make you feel, knowing that you're living in a city that has these catastrophic issues?
I'm 15 right now.
15.
But
yeah,
it's scary. It's ridiculous to think that this kind of things are happening all over the place, and nobody knows about it. Nobody knows what's going on. Nobody knows how sick they're getting or why they're getting sick. It's ridiculous. And we don't have people talking about it enough. We don't have our schools, our teachers, students. I have friends who have brain cancers and bone cancers all over the place.
Wow.
And I shouldn't be this age and have friends that are on the fast ticket to death. It's scary.
Are your teachers at school discussing any of this with you, or how is it being treated at your school?
No, nobody's talking about it. I've spoken to a lot of my teachers, and I asked them, well, why don't you guys talk about Westlake? Why don't you guys talk about the creek? And they look at me they don't know. I tell them, these crazy things. I told my chemistry teacher, you know what thorium is, right? And he was like, yeah, it's very radioactive. We have the largest amount of thorium anywhere else in the world, right here in St. Louis County. He looked at me, he looked like he was sick.
So you were you were informing your teacher that this. Now, when you informed this of him, what was his reaction like in the following week, or did he change his attitude? As an adult, if it were me, I would be organizing my friends to go sit and talk to my congressman's office. You may not. This is the thing. Personal contact with your elected officials has really great importance in their eyes. And the last thing they want to do is, if I were a teenager living in St. Louis, I'd be organizing my friends, because the last thing an elected official wants to do is to turn away some teenagers. I'll be honest. But so, what have you guys heard anything about this current legislation that's going to? I was dumbfounded over the weekend when I discovered that the Congress and the Senate have not passed these two bits of legislation to hand it over to the Army Corps of Engineers already. They've passed the legislation's in the houses, it's in the Senate, it's in the House, but they're sort of taking the slow track, like this is just some normal piece of catastrophe. Have you heard any movement within the community to put pressure on your elected officials to make them at least get the place, begin to get cleaned up?
That's one of the big things that we're really trying to work for, is getting the word out and having everybody call their local congressman and that was one of the other things that we discussed at our meetings. Westlake has meetings quite often, and then Coldwater Creek, just the facts, just had one of its first meetings here just a couple last week, and they're really pushing people, our family members and our friends that are out of state, to contact their local congressmen, because when these bills come through, we need them to already be educated about the issue, so that way it will go through.
Right.
And so an opportunity like a radio show and things like that, those are great opportunities to help get the word out. It really does help a lot.
Well, I'm glad that I can be of help, because I actually, to be honest, I am dumbfounded that this is not being considered. It's not just should be considered, it is a catastrophic event for the city of St. Louis and the residents of St. Louis that, frankly, I feel like our government has a responsibility to come in and help remediate and move families away that are very close and figure out what they can do. But they seem to be taking the very slow track. It's almost as if Claire McCaskill, who is your senator, who, frankly, I contributed to her campaign to get her elected, I'm just kind of dumbfounded that we've got legislation in, but they're not moving it forward. And perhaps the words you just said just now, Jesse, are really the reason is our elected officials are just not educated about the catastrophic event that is really going on there. And so I can tell you for myself, I am going to make an appointment, and I'm not going to just call my elected officials. I've been calling, and I'm done calling. I'm going to go sit in their offices. I'm going to make an appointment with my Congressman, Pete DeFazio, my Senator, Ron Wyden, my other Senator, Jeff Merkley. They're all in Oregon, but they have local offices, and I'm going to call their local offices and sit down with their liaisons and say, and I'm going to print out the articles and say, look, this is catastrophic that we need to, and I would encourage all of our listeners and everybody in St. Louis to do the same. I personally believe personal contact is a lot stronger. This is why I say, like, with the youth and the younger people, gather your friends.
Right.
And I'll tell you what, when I was younger, we used to conduct sit-ins. That became passé, but you know what? They're extremely effective. Sit-ins are quite effective when people just go park themselves in an office and say, we're not moving until you guys do something. I know it's extreme, but really,
you were saying, and that this is my biggest issue too, is how long they're taking. It really feels like they're dragging their feet. And in Florissant, or in Hazelwood, and it's Hazelwood and Florissant right now that are two of the bigger areas that are affected directly by Coldwater Creek and the contaminants. They've got a park right now. It's called St. Sin Park, I believe. And I did a drive-by last week because I guess since the beginning of the summer, the park has been closed down. Food Wrap is in there, and they are cleaning up and basically excavating the entire park to remove the radioactive waste that they found along the creek bed, because the creek runs adjacent to the park. When you go down there and you look at it, first of all, they've got just a very little flimsy orange, that little like plastic fence up around it, with just a sign that says closed. Now, I know, I'm 27, but I was a teenager once, and that right there says come in. That is an invite to, they don't want us in there. We should sneak over that fence and go see what's going on. And then, just feet. Literally, you're standing in front of the sign that says closed. If you turn to the right, you're facing somebody's driveway. So Food Wrap has the park closed, but does that then mean that those people's backyard is closed too? And why are those people not been moved? Why are they still expected to raise their families with the creek being their backyard, but it's important enough to dig up this whole park? It doesn't make sense.
It's true, and that's actually true. That's part of the 90% rule. That's what I call it. I don't know. Probably neither of you knew, because I didn't know about Dr. John Goffman, Dr. John Goffman was a biologist that was hired by the Atomic Energy Commission, which was basically is the Atomic Energy Agency, who we now call the NRC. They were so corrupt that they renamed themselves, right? In fact, it was what happened in St. Louis that caused the big stink for them to be renamed the NRC. So they were very corrupt, but he was hired by them to find what good could come out of out of nuclear pollution. Like if he was charged to find out, the wish list was that nuclear pollution would actually help human beings. If he couldn't prove that, then they wanted him to prove that it wasn't harmful. And the worst that they didn't, and they basically put his orders out that they didn't want him to tell him that it was very catastrophically catastrophic contaminant. Well, he and Dr. Arthur Tamplin did studies on infants, women, children, adults, men, and women, and found that, in fact, radiation is extremely harmful to babies in utero, to young children, to young women under 25, and he told the government that. And what he did, they basically fired him. They suppressed his information. And then he discovered that the United States government destroyed the information that they were studying from the Hiroshima victims. So he studied them on his own for 20 years. And after his 20-year studies that came out in the mid-'60s, he discovered that they basically underreport the negative effects of radiation by 90%. And they deny that radiation causes, and they deny radiation causes harm, which is, they're still sticking to that story. You know, all of everything you hear from the Nuclear Regulatory Commission and probably the EPA in St. Louis will be that there's no immediate effects. There's no negative immediate effects.
No immediate. That's the key word they keep using. No immediate danger. I'm not going to drop dead tomorrow, but my children and my grandchildren probably will become very ill if we're not sterile and not able to even reproduce. Yeah.
Right. That's exactly right. And so this is why it's so, like, I have this burning issue for me that I just feel like we cannot abandon the people of St. Louis and the children of St. Louis. And I personally, from the studies I know, there needs to be at least a 10-mile radius, at least. You know, when any nuclear catastrophic event happens, they evacuate the area by 50 miles. So when I hear citizens of St. Louis saying, well, we just want the 1 mile area around it, I think we need to step up our game and demand real action. I mean, I don't live in St. Louis, so I don't want to step on anybody's toes, but frankly, you're both very young people, and you have your futures ahead of you, and you have already been exposed to radiation. I mean, this is the sad part. It's already happening. You're finding out after the fact. And so there are things, now I will tell you this, there are things that you can do to remediate the radiation. There are things that you can do to help your body shake it off. You know, I've heard that you can take a tablespoon of baking soda once a week. That helps. There's a carbon product. You can get a carbon product. You can take that. You definitely want to make sure that you eliminate chemicals from your body as much as possible. And you know what's an interesting thing is it's important to stay happy. Like, how do you stay happy when you're constantly anxious? But that's kind of one of those things that the happier you are, the stronger you feel. You know what I mean? It's kind of an interesting little thing.
Yeah, it's becoming difficult. I own a hair salon up here, my mom and I, and it's a family business. And here recently, you know, we've kind of felt like it's our duty and our obligation because we have direct contact with our clients and with their lives to share this information. So I've been, you know, working as hard as I can with clients that are willing to listen, because not everybody wants to listen, and some people don't want to hear it at all. So I kind of bring it up chair side, you know, have you heard what's going on with the landfill or with the creek, just to see kind of where they're at. And I find that a lot of my clients are sick. It was last Sunday I went to shave a client's head because she is terminally ill with cancer, and she has never had cancer in her family at all. But in talking to her, we found out that her family, she raised her children really close to Coldwater Creek almost most of her life.
Oh, my God.
So, and then, I have clients with grandchildren that are 3 years old that are recently diagnosed with leukemia. So working with the public, I found before this all came out, it's what it was. But now it's turned into this big monster that just keeps growing. Like, wow, there's more and more and more people that their stories are all the same, the same story.
Well, this is the interesting thing, and this is I don't know if you guys are aware of Fukushima. Are you aware that there are 3 nuclear meltdowns still ongoing in Fukushima?
Yeah.
I think I have heard that, yes.
Yeah, so you see, this is the interesting thing. I've been in the Fukushima fight. We call ourselves Fuku fighters, those of us that are trying to bring awareness to the idea that we basically have a nuclear volcano on the edge of Japan. It is nonstop. They let it get so out of control. They have no answers. They can't even build a robot to go in and take a look because it's so radioactive, right? But this is the interesting thing about all of it, is there is the denial of when we hear like the global climate people telling us that nuclear is the answer. Nuclear is not the answer because they have no solution for the catastrophic waste, like the way it's affecting your family. I mean, your mother has these catastrophic health issues. What happens is because it piles up, it's accumulative, right? So that's why it takes a long time, because it doesn't present these problems immediately. It really does take quite a long while for things to happen, right? So it's really important for us to understand how to, you can cut out the negative effects of radiation by just staying indoors. We're never told that. I mean, I was really completely blind to any of this stuff until about 3 years ago. I had a nightmare. I thought I saw the sky on fire, and I went to the internet and discovered that Fukushima is completely out of control, which is interesting because you guys are dealing with your own catastrophic event that itself is out of control, and the news media is smothering that information as easily and as well as they are smothering the Fukushima events. And they pretend as if, don't worry, we know what we're going to do. We'll have time to fix it. We know what we're going to do. It's not going to cause that. I mean, it caused me to do I have a YouTube channel called Nuts for Art, NUTZFORART. And I have been reading books by Dr. John Goffman on my YouTube channel. I found a funny book. I wanted to understand what Dr. Goffman, what his scientific knowledge was, all of his studies, because he did all of his studies in the 50s and 60s and 70s, so it's a lot of information from a long time ago, right? Or 34 years ago. I guess that's not that long. But inside of the first book that I read, he said that they know when you have when you have any type of a nuclear power plant, that they know that for every 2 rads of radiation in the air, for a population of 200 million, we are going to have 32,000 extra cancers and 225,000 birth defects. They know that. So the government basically decided that it was worthwhile to have this energy, this source of energy, and allow for people to have these illnesses. So multiply at times our population, right? This is all kind of the secret. This is all the secret stuff. The problem with radiation is they can deny that radiation causes harm, but radiation never denies the harm it causes. It's evident, as in your mom, as in your clients. Now, when you went to these meetings, Jesse, what was the end result of them? What are they telling people to do? They're asking people to call their congressman. How often do they meet?
It feels like it's about once a month, because I think they started off as like a regular community meeting, but then they kind of turned into these Westlake landfill gatherings because they needed a time and a place to where we could actually have a large number of people get together. And at any given meeting within the past 2 months, I would say anywhere between 300 and 400 people. I mean, they've really, really grown. It was last Wednesday, they had the ATSDR come in, and I guess it's a government agency, but basically what they were here to do in North County, in Florissant and Hazelwood, was to gather our medical history, and then they want to know our stories and possible pathways to exposure. And I get that that's important because we want to know, what kind of cancers that people are coming down with in different ways that they potentially were exposed. But because it's still here, because they're not doing anything at this point yet to rectify the situation, became frustrating. At one point I was speaking during the meeting, and I told them, I'm 27 years old. I'm at a point in my life where eventually I'm going to want to start a family. And I said, and right now you're telling me that this is a 1 to 2 year process of gathering these illnesses. And I said, we know we're sick. Everybody here, we already know we're sick. We know we're dying. You guys have admitted that the radiation is here. How long do we do this gathering information before we finally say, okay, enough's enough, let's fix the problem? Because, we're starting to feel like a science experiment. I mean, guinea pigs practically.
Yeah. What did they say?
When you ask questions like that, they kind of beat around the bush a little bit. They go into explaining, how they've helped other communities and things like that. And it's more of a way to pacify and kind of push off the question. They don't really have an answer.
Yes, which is why I believe in sit-ins. I'm going to tell you what, I think sit-ins are very effective because so far, this is my take on the people of St. Louis, because, I'm from the West Coast, and out here we're a little bit radical, I think. You know what I mean? We're pretty much in your face, a lot of us. We're not entirely, totally well-behaved. Do you know what I mean? So, this is my take. All the people that I've talked to from St. Louis are super well-behaved. If it was me, I'd be flaming. I'd have flames coming from my nostrils by this point. I would be in so many people's faces. You know what I mean? I'm in Oregon and I'm enraged as it is. I listened to your sweet little sister Carly, 15 years old, telling her science teacher about this. That's unconscionable that an adult in St. Louis does not have a science teacher, that the teachers are not organizing their students to get aggressive action to fix this situation immediately. We're not on the slow train to fix a catastrophic radiological disaster. This is how I feel.
Yeah, on any given day, driving through Florissant and through Hazelwood on my way to work, I work 6 minutes from here. I cross over the creek 3 times on the way to work and 3 times on the way back, and then with it just residing at the end of my street. And, people say, well, why don't you just leave or why don't you get out? But the thing is, we've established a business here. In November of last year, we bought 2 buildings in Old Town Florissant, in the heart of Old Town Florissant, which is also only feet away from Coldwater Creek. And, we're trying to grow a business and raise a family, but then, the thought of moving. So my mom has done a lot of research on where you could go, and it just seems that these issues are everywhere. Yeah. And then if you could find a spot that, was pretty healthy and not suffering from these issues, how do you, without guilt, sell your home to another family that's going to move in? Hopefully they don't have children. And because this is becoming more nationally known, who in their right mind would want to move here anyway?
Right.
You
but
almost
just the
feel
logistics.
stuck.
Yeah. Well, look at the logistics. I mean, your mom has lupus. She's not. I mean, that was a huge job. How many children does your mother still have at home?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Right. So, like, that is a gigantic. People that I've talked to about this say, God, if I was in St. Louis, I'd move immediately. It's not that easy. People in our country, we are tied to our property. I interviewed a really great activist on Wednesday, and he made a remark. He's like, those people are morons. I'm like, they're not morons. They just can't move. It's not that you don't. If you could, if the government came in and gave every family $300,000 to move, you'd move in a heartbeat. You know what I mean? Like,
absolutely.
People would move. And when I think about the money that we're pouring, you know how much money we give to Saudi Arabia or even to the country of Japan every year. I mean, we are giving money away at catastrophic rates while our own citizens really, I agree with you, are like, but, you're right about the whole thing about it is everywhere. Tritium is leaking into the water supply of New York City. Off of the Great Lakes, the old Zion nuclear power plant that's closed down is still in a catastrophic event. I mean, it's the neglect of the nuclear industry really does need to be exposed, and I think this is why there's huge silence on it, Jesse, because if they admit what they've done, then they have to start admitting what they've done everywhere else. You know what I mean? Like, first off, they have to, and then think of this, St. Louis Airport would be closed.
Right. Yeah, and that's, recently, after the last meeting, there was a couple people that spoke more in regards to the potential for, especially with the landfill being so close to the river, and the toxins getting into our water supply. Well, the water intake for all of North County, so Florissant, Hazelwood, Blackjack, is just a few miles down the river from where the landfill is at. So that potentially could mean that we're being exposed in our water. And then downstream from that would be the intake for all of St. Louis City. So, there's a lot of people that aren't directly affected, they think, but there's nobody that at this point that we've found that's willing to test the water, I think out of fear of who's going to be in trouble.
Wait a minute, Jesse. You're telling me nobody's testing the water?
I think that they probably do regular testing, but it's the same with, our medical testing. When you go to the doctor and you're sick, they don't test for everything. They test for what your insurance will pay for, or they'll test for what you're inquiring about. So I've not heard anybody say, yes, the water has been tested, yes, it's clean. It's more of, we just hope it is. So 2 weeks ago, we switched the whole family over to store-bought water. We're not drinking out of the tap water anymore. Not until we hear otherwise.
Well, you know what? You can get a really decent water filter. This will save your family a lot of money. You can get an over-the-counter water filter. There's a really good one. It's called Pure Effects Filter. And you can buy one, these filter units. Let me see if I can open that page up really quickly. Hold on. Because that actually is a really great little company. It's called Pure Effect Advanced, pureeffectfilters.com. You could buy one that purports, now you'd have to scrape your money together, $379, and it plugs up to your sink. And then, you can, worst case scenario, this is the other thing to think about. I have one on my, I get a shower filter. I bought a little shower filter on Amazon to stick on my shower so that I'm not showering in that in the radiated water, because I think it might actually help you. That might be something that you might want to consider, because if you're going to switch over to bottled water, that's going to be super expensive for you guys. So it's coming up with three. Now, they have other water filters here, but those other water filters, which is better than nothing, $239, $139. The cheapest one they have says it's $139. It takes out radiation, heavy metal, chemical, and sediment water filter. Frankly, I'm not pushing this company. I have no in on this company, but I didn't buy my water filter from these people, or maybe I did. I always have a water filter because I used to sell water way before radiation started 10 or 15 years ago, and I learned even then that our water in the United States is really unhealthy. It's very important for us to never drink tap water. So I'm glad that your family switched over. So my goal is to help people understand how to protect themselves and how to live through this, because there really are things that we can do to help ourselves. I'm really fascinated by this idea that now when you said that some of your clients don't really want to talk about it, they're living in St. Louis and people would rather just ignore it than face it. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, absolutely. It's so frustrating, especially when you know what's going on, but I try to invite them to educate themselves and I explain as much as I can. But some people, especially with the big media news, when Westlake landfill really started getting heavy news exposure, a couple months ago, when this really was mounting up, the local news, I can't remember if it was Fox 2 or one of our local news, is now doing like a nightly segment on the landfill. But they spent like 2 weeks for sure, basically convincing everybody that it's okay. They need to calm down. And then the city of Bridgeton held a meeting. Bridgeton is where the landfill is located. They held a meeting for all of the local businesses, and that meeting too was more of a calm down, don't worry, everything's going to be fine. But I mean, I guess they don't want their businesses leaving, which, duh. But I just feel like we shouldn't lie to people. They deserve an opportunity to protect themselves and their families with the truth.
Yes. Yes.
And a lot of people just want to ignore it or say the news said it was fine.
Right. They're fine. It's that 90% rule, underreport the negative effects of radiation. Well, I mean, let's just talk reality. Look at what's happening in Fukushima. We had 4 full meltdowns. Chernobyl was a 1/3 core meltdown. And that went on. They stopped it. It took them 6 months. They lost over 600,000 people. They had guys going in and just putting in 1 shovel of dirt on it at a time to stop it from melting down totally. And they accomplished their task. A lot of Russians lost their lives. A lot of Russian soldiers lost their lives saving the world. At Fukushima, we had 3 nuclear power plants. 2 of them blew up. And we had all 4, we have units 1, 2, 3, and 4 in complete still. Actually, China syndrome. They are unstoppable. That's why I call them a nuclear volcano, because they can't stop it. And do we hear a word about it? In fact, in Japan, you know what they did? They passed secrecy laws so that you're not allowed to ask about, no reporters are allowed to ask about radiation in Japan. And if you do, you go to jail. And doctors in Japan, because it's socialized medicine, are not allowed to help people who say that they think they've been affected by radiation. So,
oh my gosh.
Yes. And so this is my point with you guys. Like, you need to gird your loins here and get a little bit strong, because the strength of the nuclear cartel, the reason that Fox News underplays the effects of radiation is because they are the primary. General Electric owns MSNBC. Rupert Murdoch has major shareholders. Rupert Murdoch, Bill Gates, all these people that have major investments, they're the major shareholders. We have 3 news network stations in the United States. Those 3 news network stations basically own the nuclear industry. So they're not going to tell us the truth about radiation if we're just going to listen to them. And we have big mountains to climb, but I really believe that as citizens, like, I don't think Claire McCaskill is a bad person. I don't think Roy Blunt is a bad person. You know what I mean? I think that these are people who have been listening to the nuclear industry, and they don't understand. They understand what they're being told, but they are also our elected officials, which is why I think we need to organize. You know, we need just like if you get 2 or 3 citizens to just make an appointment on a regular basis to go sit in their office and say, look, bring your medical records and say, look, these are my medical records. Compare your medical records from people around other big cities that are living near an airport. Like, these are not normal events. So I always tell people in this anti-nuclear fight, we have to be smarter. And we kind of have to be gutsy because they are going to, as you said, use us like lab rats. You know, I mean, we are their little science experiments. So, is your sister still there? So,
I'm still here.
Is Carly there?
I'm still here.
Oh yeah, okay. I don't mean to freak you out, Carly. Like with all this, I know you're only 15, but this is a heavy burden for a 15-year-old to have to carry. I mean, this is some big information.
It's a heavy burden for all of us to carry, really.
Yes,
it
is.
The sad part is that not all of us are carrying it. Not all of us know what's happening. I definitely have friends and teachers that have no idea what's going on.
And at school, like, what would happen? Do you think you would get any support from your school administration if you were to start, like, a club at school that said, hey, we want to start taking some action and visiting our congressman and talking to our mayor and talking to elected officials? Gather some students around at school. Do you think that your teachers would support that? Do you think
that's what I'm working towards. I'm trying to talk to a lot of my teachers, as many teachers as I can, to try and get something done about this, get the word out, because, I mean, like my brother said, kids play in that creek. They're being exposed all the time.
Well, you know, one of the things that you guys could do is just make up a little radiation sign. I wonder if it would stick. I wonder if the government would take it down. Just make up a little radiation sign that at least says there's radiation there. You know what I mean? Like, this is the hardest part for me. This is the shock that I haven't adjusted yet to this, is that it's up to us. Like, I'm 60 years old, and I was born in 1955, right at the height of all of this, the Cold War and the nuclear war and all that stuff, and the nuclear, when they were first starting all the nuclear bombings all over the Pacific, right? But I actually really believe that the government would protect us. I can't believe that it's up to us to have to tell them that we have a right to have a nuclear-free life. You know, you guys have a right to live in and this business of what's happened in Westlake at Coldwater Creek, with them, the least that they can do is getting this legislation that's going through Congress so that they can start cleaning up these sites before it becomes even a worse catastrophe. Because, Jesse, correct me if I'm wrong, but isn't the fire still ongoing?
Yes. Yeah, that's still a huge issue. It was yesterday or the day before, I don't know if you saw on the page that they had a well blow up. And they had all the workers out there trying to, I guess, repair that issue. But you know, people are watching really, really closely, and it's like everything that's happening is going against helping us, you know. And the EPA is one of the biggest issues because they want to say that it's not a problem, you know, that it should be left where it's at and then it's safe. But then, you know, they're also saying, well, you don't want this on a truck traveling to through your neighborhoods on its way out of town. So if it was safe, why would they be saying that? You know?
Right.
It doesn't make any sense. And what I would love to see in a perfect world, what I would love to see happen, you know how I guess I'll give Katrina as an example, or other world disasters where they bring all these people in from all over the place in attire, and everybody comes together, clean up a disaster.
Yeah.
That's what I would love to see in this area. A bunch of people coming in from all over the place. They would pick a day to start, and they wouldn't stop until the issue was rectified. But it seems like it's still a secret, you know, and they're slowly cleaning up one park, but the Coldwater Creek is 15 miles long, and they're working on one park, and there's documentation that FUSRAP has been cleaning up Coldwater Creek since, I think, 1997. That's almost 20 years now. And where are we, you know?
Wow.
So I don't know how to get them on the ball. You know, they need to get going. People are dying.
Yeah. Well, not only that, and it's not just right now people are dying. We're talking about affecting future generations, because what radiation does is it messes with your DNA. It basically drills a hole right through your DNA. Like, when we hear these pro-nuclear people say, well, we have radiation everywhere. Well, yes, and the natural radiation causes a natural occurrence of cancers. We already know that. And it causes a natural occurrence of genetic defects. That's a natural thing. So why would you double it? And then on top of that, it's not even just the man-made radiation is something that nature has no concept. I mean, if you guys look around your neighborhood, this is an interesting thing. Have you noticed any of your plants mutating, like a flower that grows a flower outside of it, or like anything like that? Have you ever looked at any of the plant life around your neighborhoods? Have you noticed anything like that?
We have bushes out front of our house that I've noticed look like they have tumors on the bark.
Wow.
So, yeah. I'd never seen something
it.
like that before, but that's what it looks like, kind of like a growth almost.
Yeah, well, it probably is a growth. I mean, this is the thing. Most of us, like, we don't really pay. We're so conditioned for that normalcy. We have this something called the normalcy bias. Like, when we live, like, people that, you guys are kind of like in a war zone. I hate to put it to you that way. That's really kind of what's happened to you. All of a sudden, like, you're in this place where people desperately want things to be normal. That's why nobody's willing to talk about it, because they want it to be normal. They don't want to admit that. Because if say for your example, the customers that come in, they're like, oh, yeah, if you really took it seriously, the whole community would have to figure out how the heck are we going to protect our children? How are we going to get out of here? Then you have to really put some pressure on a government that's dragging its feet because they're getting paid by the big money lobbyists to just continue to ignore this problem. So it's
right.
This is part of our big challenge. Like, we not only have to, you not only have to deal with the physical part of it, but you have to deal with the political part. And I tell people, radiation is not a political issue. It's a health issue. It's a public issue, period. That's all it is. It's not political. People say, well, I don't want to talk because it's too political. Radiation is not political. It's a public health issue. You know, one of the things that John Goffman talked about was that, you know, these people, the people that run the nuclear industry, one of the things, I'm reading his book, Poison Power, on my YouTube channel right now. Last night's reading was about how nuclear power projects to give us more energy than, you know, it only provides less than 10% energy in the first place. So if we close down every single nuclear power plant in the entire country, we wouldn't be hurt. But you guys are not dealing with nuclear power plants. You're dealing with catastrophic waste that's very close to a fire. That's the I don't get it when these people come into your meetings and they act like it's a slow train. I am just dumbfounded. So, look,
yeah,
I want to be able to help you guys in any way you can. Is there anything that you want to make sure you get out into the public venue?
Yeah, just educate yourself. Really, really look into this information. We really need help from outsiders, people that do not live here, because in order to get these bills to go through. It's gonna take a country of educated people on this matter, and don't just listen to what you hear in the media. You know, if you hear something, look into it. Look into it a little further, because just because somebody...
Are you there, Jesse? Hello, Jesse?
Yep.
Okay, I missed you
I'm
a little
here.
bit there. You skipped out a little bit. So just because you hear it on the television, what?
Just because you hear it on the television doesn't mean that that's the truth, that it's set in stone. To really take that information for what it is and then analyze it, you know. Get out there and look. I've found it very important for me in recently dealing with this to actually get in my car and to drive around and go to these sites, because I wanted to see for myself. Now, I wasn't courageous enough to get out of my car. Not that
my
vehicle is going to keep me safe. The vehicle won't keep me safe, but I felt a sense of comfort in my car versus walking around.
You are more protected inside your car.
Well, good, because I felt like it.
Well,
definitely felt safer.
I mean, radiation, there's certain levels of radiation. Certain radiations, gamma, I believe it is, goes through everything, but certain radiations are stopped by very small pieces of matter, so it does help. So it's better to not expose yourself as much as possible, especially since you're both young. I mean, that's a very important thing. Now, what about people that we could contact? Because I live in Oregon. I'm going to call Claire McCaskill. I'm going to contact my elected officials. Do you think that it would be worthwhile for us to contact any of your local officials and put pressure on them, or call the EPA or maybe the Department of Energy? Have you heard if any of that is effective?
Okay, right now, there's a lot of people that are doing that, and that's very helpful. But what I would love to see happen, and this is why, the school districts, the local school districts, have all put out newsletters to the parents. They went out, they didn't go to the parents, they went to the children, and they said, take these letters home to your parents. And, not every parent got that, because kids sometimes are, kind of forgetful. They don't always remember to give their mom and dad the letter that the teacher told them to give. But they sent home these letters basically forewarning about what would happen in the event that the fire would reach the waste at the landfill. And then I think recently, within the past week, there was another letter that had kind of went out stating similar things, but it was more in regards to medication. So if your children are on medication, please talk to your doctor and let them know that maybe your school should have an overnight dose of your child's medication just in case they were to have to shelter in place. If the schools think that this issue is severe enough that they're taking this action, why are they not discussing it more? So what I would love to see is the schools get more involved, because, that's the heart of your community, is the school.
Yes. Yes.
So if we could get the schools more involved, that might bring more parents into the light.
Mm-hmm.
That are
maybe that's
trying
what
to
I'll do.
Something.
Well, on Fridays on my radio show, it's Call-In Friday. So maybe this Friday what I'll do is I'll do some research on the school district board members and give out those phone numbers to people for people to call, because if we allow them to take the slow train, that's what they're going to do. But I think it is really imperative. I think it's really imperative for us to put pressure on them, like nonstop pressure. And we do need numbers. Like, I encourage you to organize the students, organize your friends. You don't have to be hostile, and frankly, I don't think protesting works. I've attempted to do protests in the last 3 or 4 years. People are over-protesting. They're not going to get out and protest against nuclear power. What really does matter, though, is getting to know your elected officials, making appointment with them, going to talk to them, and sitting in their offices and bring them the facts, bring them your medical records and say, look, we're not asking for anything unreasonable. We want this legislation passed now. What do we have to do to get it passed before Christmas? We're on December 6th. Tomorrow this will be airing on December 7th. We have a full, 20 few days, before the 18 days, I guess, or before Christmas. There is no reason for Congress not to pass this legislation before Christmas. It should be passed by the end of this week. That's how I feel. I mean, it should come to the floor of the House tomorrow. And the other thing that we can call is, just call the Democratic leaders. I think it's very important for us to just make their phones light up and tell all of our friends about this and share the information as much as possible and encourage people to take action because, frankly, the children of St. Louis deserve this. Because, as an older person, I'm less likely to get cancer from radiation because I'm older. It's the younger people that are getting it. And so my heart goes out to you guys. I mean, I wish I'm a fixer, and I wish I could fix this immediately for you guys. I mean, seriously. I mean, my heart is out to you, and honestly, you have such courage. You guys have such courage. The courage, this is what makes Americans is that we have courage. We're brave people. We're not cowards. And so I think once we all face this together, we can actually move forward, So we're coming up on the end of the hour. Is there anything else that you guys would like to share?
Do you have anything to say, Carli?
I mean, I hope we can get the word out there, and I hope we can get more people to listen to us.
Well, look, I will tell you what, Carli, if you can organize any of your friends and you want to have an interview on my radio show, 10 or 15 minutes, or you guys want to call in on Friday, please, you're more than welcome. I will give you any time, and we can discuss this. We can have a roundtable meeting. I will help support you in any way that you want. And Jesse, I hope maybe in 3 or 4, maybe a month from now, you can come back on and update us. I'm going to make an effort to get other members of your community on the air, but I really appreciate you sharing and your thoughtful comments. I really appreciate it because it really does speak to your humanity, and I'm very proud of both of you.
Thank you so much. Yeah, I would be totally up for that in a month. I hope there's a lot more to discuss in a month with progress. That'd be great to talk about.
Me too. So I will check in with you in a month or so. So I think we'll end this because our radio show cuts out at 2 minutes early, and this is a pre-recorded video. So I want to get all your comments on. I really appreciate both of you being here. Thank you so much for sharing your time with us, and I'll send you a link. I'll send you a link to the radio show when it comes on.
Okay. Thank you so much for your help.
Thank you.
Thank you both. Thank you for calling in. I really appreciate your help, and God bless you. And we're going to move this forward and make them to take action immediately.
Amen. I love to hear that.
We will.
Okay,
I promise. We will. Take care. Thank you so much, you guys. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye. Well, those were two quite beautiful, beautiful people in St. Louis, and we have an obligation as Americans to help these people out. This is Lonnie Clark with the Age of Fission radio show. Put your courage feet on, you guys. We definitely need it, and you know what? We need to speak truth to power, and the people of St. Louis need us to help them, and it is up to us. I hope every single one of you will contact your elected officials and demand that they pass those 2 pieces of legislation that are going through the House to get the Army Corp of Engineers to remediate the mess that's out at the Westlake landfill. And so put your courage feet on, and I'll talk with you guys soon. Take care.